The 1960s were a time of social and political adjustment in America. The civil rights movement was establishing its presence in American society with a generally peaceful rhetoric to end legal segregation, with white supremacy prevailing as the dominant social institution. One revolutionary group broke the silence of the structural violence of the African American race with a radical, publicized, violent image. With the goal of gaining recognition of black rights and ending oppression by the police, the Black Panther Party was formed in 1966. While the Black Panther Party's controversial approach in fighting structural racism and challenging police brutality resulted in increased bloodshed and the debatable initial popularity of the group, their drive and militant leadership left an evolving legacy on the culture of white supremacy, worked to ensure human rights and provided social services that were lacking in some communities, and introduced awareness and advocacy for an ongoing movement against discriminatory police violence.
The late 1960s marked the growing success of a nonviolent civil rights movement against legal racial segregation in the South. However, although Jim Crow laws were eventually revoked, discrimination was still present as ever nationwide, as blacks were not granted the recognition of their legal rights as American citizens. In such a heated social and political environment, the racial inequality in the justice system became impossible to ignore, and it was clear that the movement for racial equality needed a new approach. The Black Power movement was born in 1966, primarily formed to determine black youth. Of this wave of young revolutionaries, a small group with big goals emerged in Oakland, California, under founders Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, named the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. The group's main goal was to monitor police brutality and prevent the discriminate oppression of the black race.
I mean, that's the rhetoric of the time, and it's the feeling that many of us had that we were at the end of an era and the beginning of something else, and we couldn't let it go by without giving all of our strength and energy to resistance.
They developed a 10-point program which dictated their objectives, including freedom, employment, education, fair trial, healthcare, housing, and an end to police violence.
The black people, instead of saying we're asking white people to give us those constitutional rights, we're saying we demand them. And so it was a very different kind of, it was less dependence on white goodwill than the civil rights movement had been.
Within 2 years, the political organization expanded its influence across other areas in the U.S. with the development of nationwide chapters of the party. The group empowered blacks to be as self-reliant as leaders of their fight for equality and justice.
Because that's the type of organization the Black Panther Party is. We don't produce buffoons, we produce leaders. But everybody in the Black Panther Party, on any type of cadre, he's becoming a leader.
While the party did not advocate violence, they promoted the arming of black people in order to protect themselves and their rights.
What were they doing? They were saying, we have a right in our communities not to be brutalized, not to be shot, and we have a right to pick up a gun to stop you from shooting us.
In late 1966, they organized their first patrols of the police, in which they lawfully monitored the behavior of officers and loudly exclaimed their opposition to the unjust police system in rallies. When confronted, the Panthers were informed and well-spoken in their constitutional rights to be armed and protect themselves. This legal yet radical method received national attention and alerted people of the Panthers' cause. Seeing this integration of the culture of black nationalism in the media, the FBI initiated a program known as COINTELPRO in August of 1967 in an effort to prevent the growth of the party, which they saw as a threat to American security. Despite their threats and lack of popularity, the Panthers risked their lives in their continued efforts, as many died at the hands of the police or were targeted and put in prison.
We always said, if you actually make a commitment at the age of 20, and you say, I don't want to make that commitment because of the simple reason that I'm too young to die, I want to live a little bit longer, what you did, you did already.
Because their 10-point program demanded healthcare and basic rights, the Panthers created their breakfast program in 1969 in Oakland, a successful social service which provided children in underprivileged black communities with daily breakfast. Despite the program's success in providing a structural need for American children, the FBI tried to shut it down, seeing any step forward for the Panthers as a risk to national safety. Despite this, the Panthers worked to install the service nationwide, feeding over 10,000 children daily by 1970. Healthcare clinics and other survival programs were also established, in which blacks could get medical help despite their lack of money or insurance, perpetuating the importance of black lives through the provision of human rights.
If this is criminal, then we all want to be criminal. If it's criminal to feed children that are hungry, If it's criminal to start a program that says that the only prerequisite that people have to have to involve themselves in this program is to be hungry, then we're going to continue to be criminal. If it's criminal to say that the only prerequisite that people have to have when they want free medical aid is that they be sick, then we intend to continue to be criminal.
On December 4th, 1969, Fred Hampton, the chairman of the prominent Illinois chapter and the founder of the healthcare program, and Mark Clark, a party member, were shot and killed in Hampton's Chicago home. Years later, it was revealed the assassination was the planned work of the FBI. A major leader in the Black Power movement and a national speaker against police brutality, Hampton's death was a tragedy and raised outrage in the party, as well as national awareness of the faulty race politics in the justice system. Many young radicals, such as the Weathermen, reacted to the murder with a rhetoric of war against the justice system.
It was devastating for us and also spurred us on to feel that we had to take more drastic actions in resistance.
Support from radical groups increased in response to Hampton's murder, but without the strong leadership of Speaker Fred Hampton, their general following decreased, police attacks increased, and Panthers continued to engage in fatal gunfights with officers.
Particularly, I think, after Fred was murdered in Chicago, I think their popularity somewhat declined. I think the police wanted it to be a lesson to anybody who would stand up to them.
Years of allegations of violence by Huey Newton led to a decline in his power, which dissolved his leadership of the party.
Now, through the years of harassments, jailings, murders such as Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, who was murdered there in Chicago by the police. Fred Hampton was asleep when he was machine gunned. All of these things caused the party to slowly lose membership.
Conflicts between the members of the party ensued about the future of the organization, leading to a loss of membership and later the collapse of the group in 1982.
The most immediate impact of the Black Panther Party was the radical voice and sense of empowerment that they gave to the black community. Their publicized actions earned them national recognition despite their small size.
But we got this international notoriety. We were like a social evolutionary accident in the middle of an ongoing civil human rights protest that was already there.
However, this recognition often took the form of fear due to their belligerent image.
Many whites were threatened by Black Panthers. I don't think, they were deliberately misportrayed as attacking white people, which is not what they were about.
The social services the Panthers established, such as the breakfast program, granted acknowledgement of black needs and human rights and were largely successful. In the span of their influence as a political force, total racial justice was not achieved as desired. 28 Panther members were killed and many more imprisoned. Many police officers also lost their lives in confrontations with the Panthers. Despite this loss of life, the Panthers granted the Black Power movement vitality and introduced black entitlement to continue the fight for change against white supremacy.
The Black Panthers' fight for justice has no clear result yet, nor is it close to being over. While it is less present than in the 1960s and 70s, racism and predetermined privilege still exist. While they achieved many victories in their years as a group, the Panthers' final goal of racial justice is still being worked towards. Although the party dissolved in 1982, the Panthers remain as symbols and leaders of the fight for racial equality. Police brutality against the African American race is still a very relevant issue today, as seen in the recent cases of Eric Garner and Michael Brown. In both of these cases, a black person was antagonized and killed by officers. The white police attacked with little threat or justification for the brutality, but the police were not sentenced to any punishment. The protests and anger toward the police violence and lack of justice were demonstrated by a large part of America, proving that the goals and beliefs of the Black Panther Party are still gaining popularity and demonstrating themselves in modern race conflicts.
The slogan Black Lives Matter is so important. The idea that we have to put forward, and it's a shame at this day and age that we have to put forward that a black life is as important as your life or my life or any life.
The Black Panthers were very significant leaders of the movement for black justice. Their loud and violent methods were revolutionary, and while disputable, granted increased recognition of police brutality and the urgency for a changed perspective on black lives and basic human rights, such as food, healthcare, and equality. The last word has not been written on the impact of the Black Panther Party, as their legacy prevails and is evolving with today's racial climate.